لا يستوي أصحاب الجنة يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله ولتنظر نفس ما قدمت لغد واتقوا الله إن الله خبير بما تعملون ولا تكونوا كالذين نسوا الله فأنساهم أنفسهم أولئك هم الفاسقون لا يستوي أصحاب النار وأصحاب الجنة أصحاب الجنة هم الفائزون لو أنزلنا هذا القرآن على جبل لرأيته خاشعا متصدعا من خشية الله وتلك الأمثال نضربها للناس لعلهم يتفكرون الله الذي لا إله إلا هو عالم الغيب والشهادة هو الرحمن الرحيم هو الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الملك القدوس السلام المؤمن المهيمن العزيز الجبار المتكبر سبحان الله عما يشركون هو الله الخالق البارئ المصور له الأسماء الحسنى يسبح له ما في السماوات والأرض وهو العزيز الحكيم.
الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن سيدنا محمدا عبده ورسوله اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه. Remember in the surah that we just discussed, Al-Mujadila, then it was two parties, the party of Allah, the Hizbullah, and the Hizb al-Shaytan. And we said that that time there was hint in it that those hypocrites who comes in, they belong to Hizb al-Shaytan. Here Allah subhanahu expand a little bit in the surah about the Muslims. He said the Muslim actually in two groups also. A group that actually, without saying it, Hizbullah and Hizb al-Shaytan here, but group actually directly, would you understand the other one, you relate to the one group belonging to that, the party of Satan, and another group who belong to the party of Allah. And this emphasis then on the hypocrites, more on the hypocrites, because obviously the hypocrites is the one who confess to be part of the Muslims, and then they associated or ally themselves with Hizb al-Shaytan. In a historical background about this surah, it referred actually to the Muslim who sided with the Jewish tribe Bani Nadir and who betrayed the Prophet and was plotted to assassinate him. Although you find out in many times in the Quran, the verses comes in related to a specific event, but actually it is much broader. The events is just an example of what could happen, in it. So I'm actually prepared, to talk about the whole history about Bani Nadir, but it's long enough. I'm not going to discuss it today. Maybe one time I can go through the story of it because it's an interesting story. And you actually find it, unfortunately, related to some action of the Muslim even these days. So Allah subhanahu talk about those, and he as much as talk about the other, remember when you talk about the other munafiqeen also in the previous surah that they are liar and this, basically they liar. Here Allah subhanahu say that those people actually who do this, they are coward and deceitful. So look. Allah directly come and address them. He said, Alam tara ila alladhina nafaqu. يقول لإخوانهم الذين كفروا من أهل الكتاب لئن أخرجتم لنخرجن معكم ولا نطيع فيكم أحدا أبدا وإن قتلتم لننصرنكم والله يشهد أنهم لكاذبون. Have you not observed or seen the hypocrites who go to their friends from the disbelievers, you know, to tell them, if you are expelled, we'll go out with you and we shall never obey, anyone against you. Which means that you are part of a believing community or a believing, Muslims countries, and here is you have attack against a certain Muslim group, and then you go to the enemies and you said, I am with you. I'm going to support. If you fight, I'll fight with you. If they ask me to fight against you, I will never obey them. So if you are expelled, we will be out, and we shall never obey anyone against you. Whenever they tell us, we'll never get against you. And if you are fought, we shall indeed support you. We'll fight with you. But Allah is witness that they are liar. You know. وإن قتلتم لننصرنكم والله يشهد إنهم لكاذبون. And then Allah continue and say, لئن أخرجوا لا يخرجون معهم ولئن قتلوا لا ينصرونهم ولئن نصروهم لا يولون الأدبار ثم لا ينصرون. Surely, if they were to expel, if the enemies were to expel, they will never go with them, although they promised will go with you, Lord. And if they fought, they will never support them. And even if they supported them, they basically will retreat and turn back in flight, and they will not be helped, and then they will never support them. Then the surah goes and said, okay, let's look now the believers who are from the party of Allah now. This is a group of people who declare their belief, but they are belonging to the other party, and this is their action. They support the enemies all the time. But as far as a believer, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say there are three groups. They call, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the muhajirin, the immigrant, and those very early Muslims, who were forced to leave Mecca and so on, and abandon all their position for the sake of Allah. The supporters, who supported them, the residents of Medina, who welcomed the immigrant, offering them protection. And the later generation, those who came after them and after the Islamic State, Islamic nation, and so on, doing see this, the bad part, the all good words, suddenly it becoming, has very negative connotation, You said Hezbollah has negative connotation. Islamic State has negative connotation. What is this? Those guys actually took all of the words and just, took it and converted to something. Well, anyway. So we have, so when the tongue slips, hopefully people if listen to it don't think we don't belong to this group or that group. But anyway, if you look about this one also, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say the immigrant and so on, but that issue can happen anytime too. You can be in a country which is Muslim under a lot of persecution, and they immigrate to other place and leave. Then how is the other people to read them? Do they support them or stand against them or abuse them or take advantage of them? And then after the victory happened, there is always people will come after this. And frankly, you see it in even many people, like what happened, for example, in Syria before. Many people immigrated, left Syria. It depends what country have really. So these are the immigrant. Then the people who received them are the supporter. There is obviously. And then after the victory, everybody will try to take credit. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes and describe these three groups, but doesn't mention specifically Mecca and Medina and so on because of the generalities, as we said. So as far as the immigrant and the supporter, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say, talk about the immigrant. للفقراء المهاجرين الذين أخرجوا من ديارهم وأموالهم يبتغون فضلا من الله ورضوانا وينصرون الله ورسوله أولئك هم الصادقون. A share, talk Allah, if there is a war, then a share of whatever you earn from as a result of that booty of the war, then it will be for this immigrant, for the poor immigrant who the immigrant who were expelled from their homes and the property seeking bounties of Allah, and to please him, to please Allah, and to support the cause of Allah and his messenger, such as indeed the truthful. So Allah described them. Now, how about the supporter, the people who receive them? And والذين تبوأوا الدار والإيمان من قبلهم يحبون من هاجر إليهم ولا يجدون في صدورهم حاجة مما أوتوا ويؤثرون على أنفسهم ولو كان بهم خصاصة ومن يوق شح نفسه فأولئك هم المفلحون. And it is also for those people who establish themselves in home and in face before them, before the immigrant arrived. They love those who immigrated. They don't despise them, they love them who immigrated and have no desire in their hearts. So that which has been given to them, and they give preference to them over themselves. This is, وَيُؤْثِرُونَ عَلَى أَنفُسِهِمْ كَانَ بِهِمْ خَصَاصَةٌ. That means you are, and we have, by the way, immigrant that comes here too. But do we really تؤثرون أنفسهم وكان بهم خصاصة? Is the people who are really in need, do they support them although they have more need? They supported those people who are deprived from home and lost everything and came here. Are we willing to support them with whatever we need? You can support always with extra, but here as they say, وَيَأْثِرُونَ عَلَى أَنفُسِهِمْ وَلَوْ كَانَ بِهِمْ خَصَاصَةٌ. Khasasa means that they will give preference to them over themselves. They give preference to their need over their own needs, even though they are in need. The verse explains it. And whoever is saved from the greed of his soul, they are the successful. Now, the third group now, which is probably us, can go in. والذين جاءوا من, this is a later generation now. So والذين جاءوا من بعدهم يقولون ربنا اغفر لنا ولإخواننا الذين سبقونا في الإيمان. And those who are come after them, they say, our Lord, forgive us and all our brethren who have, preceded us in faith, and do not place any hatred in our hearts toward those who have believed. Our Lord, you are indeed full in kindness, most merciful. Do people actually have, would have, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to place hatred in our hearts toward those who have believed? Do people, is a later generation will have hatred for people, earlier generations? Why? You can see it. Doesn't people condemn Abu Bakr and Umar and Ali? And, isn't there is people, you think about it, it doesn't happen. How can those people who were was the reason why you became even a believer, they condemned them. How many countries would have been not Islam wouldn't come in them until those people, the earlier generations, So obviously Allah, the verse is applicable today, and people, if they read it, they said, how can I curse, those people or feel upset from them? And the other one, even scholars and other things. So people have to be very careful when they start criticizing people who came before them. And then the surah then deliver a command to the believer to let them watch of this. Ya ayyuha alladhina aman, O you who believe, اتقوا الله ولتنظر نفس ما قدمت لغد واتقوا الله إن الله خبير بما تعملون. Here is, O you who believe, have taqwa of Allah, and let every person look at what he has sent forward, for tomorrow, for the day of judgment, and have taqwa of Allah. Indeed, Allah is aware of all you do. But this is the one. وَلَا تَكُونُوا كَالَّذِينَ نَسُوا اللَّهَ فَأَنْسَاهُمْ أَنفُسَهُمْ أُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْفَاسِقُونَ. And don't be like those who forget Allah, so He caused them to forget themselves. Those are the rebellious. Those are al-fasiqun. So here is the issue. How can believer forget Allah? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, don't you believe, you believe, don't forget Allah. Otherwise Allah will let you forget yourself. So you wouldn't even know what's good for you. So how do you do that? You can do it by disregarding Allah commands. You forget Allah, obviously. And if you fail to uphold justice, if you, basically all of the things, if you are not righteous, if you do corrupt things, if you cause division among the Muslims, obviously, you're forgetting Allah because this is against the commands of Allah. If you break your promises, if you have, if you lack empathy toward the other Muslims, you know. So if, subhanAllah, if you really think about this one, what is happening like in Gaza and so on, it shows actually these verses apply to us, you know. How many people really can see all of these videos about what the destruction, the killing, the kids, and so on, and, and life is normal, you know. So I mean, that's you forget what is your responsibility in this case too. So so anyway, these are all. So Allah Subhanahu wa Taala say, you better you catch yourself if you forget, if you're one of those people who this falls, you are falling in this problem of forgetting Allah by not following, basically ignoring what His commands. Then in case you better repent to Allah Subhanahu wa Taala and reform, and that's because otherwise, as said, Allah Subhanahu wa Taala will let you forget yourself. How you forget yourself? You forget yourself that Allah will let you go astray. You don't know what is good for you in this life or in the hereafter, and will let you go. So, but now there is a word here also. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, humul fasiqun. What does this fasiqun means? Because if you look at al-fasiqun, you find it out rebellious, sinners, transgressor, disobedient. You find all of these translations. But actually, the word fasiqun coming with the word fasq, the fasq, or fisq actually also come from it. If you have a ripe date, the skin of the date, if it's so ripe, the skin of the date come loose from the body of the date, from the fruit itself. So it comes loose. If you pull it out, it pulls out. So al-fisq, basically, it means that you become so unvaluable that you will be moved from the fruits of the religion, or from, you split actually completely from, separated from your faith by this. So that's the word fasiqun is actually more than just the English translation give it with that meaning, that you become so trivial, so useless, everybody throws you away, and you are thrown away by you throw yourself away, and everybody throw away. So, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala come and say, okay, yes, and in this case, you better watch what group you are going to belong to. Are you going to be people who are going to go to paradise? Or are you going to go people to go to hell? By this, you're forgetting Allah, and Allah let you forget yourself, and you became one of these fasiq. That means you basically you moved away from basically the face, or you separated from your face. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لا يستوي أصحاب النار وأصحاب الجنة. أصحاب الجنة هم الفائزون. That the inhabitants of fire and the inhabitants of paradise are not equal. And obviously the inhabitants of paradise are the truly successful. Then comes in at the end of the surah, which ayat that listen to, which is moving. And this ayat is not a command or warning from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is actually just to say, think. So ayat to drive you to have this, think about Allah and the Quran. Emphasize in this one. And this, have an intellect when you read this ayat. Reflect what does it mean to you and how it does. So the first one related to the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, لو أنزلنا هذا القرآن على جبل لرأيته خاشعا متصدعا من خشية الله وتلك الأمثال نضربها للناس على ما تفكرون. Had we sent down the Quran upon a mountain, you would have surely seen it humbled and it shattered apart from the fear of Allah. Then Allah said, this is an example, this a parable for you. We have presented for mankind so they might think. What does it mean to you when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, if I have sent this Quran on a mountain, this mountain will collapse, will it shatter? So when you look at it and say, okay, if the mountain can shake and humbled by this, why my heart is not humbled and shaken by the words of the Quran? Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also continue and now talk about himself, introduce himself. Who Allah? الذي لا إله إلا هو عالم الغيب والشهادة هو الرحمن الرحيم. Remember, I gave a series of talks about the names of Allah. I probably should go to them again. But I took this and all of these names, I explained them in a little bit more details with the idea that when you look at the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you look how the name means to Allah and how you adopt the element of that name in your character. You know, because we all know this hadith, whoever, Allah has 99 names, whoever ahsaha dakhala al-jannah. People saying ahsaha means memorize it and so on. But no, ahsaha means you adopt them in your character. If you are Khalifa of Allah, vicegerent of Allah, you better try to adopt some of these elements. So we went through this in a little bit more details, but I'll just go through this quickly here. Who Allah, since He is Allah, there is no deity except Him, the all-knower, of the unseen and the seen, and He is the most, gracious, the most merciful. Is an interesting, actually, I probably said it before, but I don't know if you remember it. Allah subhanahu always says, Alimul ghaybi wa shahada. He knows the unseen and the seen. Which one is more difficult? To know the unseen is to know the seen. For us, obviously, to know the seen, the unseen is more difficult. If I come and say, I know what's outside and what's inside, if this is a proper statement? No, if you know what's outside, obviously you know what's inside. Okay, another example. If I say, he was the top of his class and he passed the exam. It doesn't make any sense because the one comes second should be more difficult than the first one. You said, yeah, he passed the exam and he was the top of the class. I know what I have seen here, but I also know what is seen outside. That gives you. But why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always He knows the unseen and the seen? That means the seen is more difficult than the unseen for us, And the reason is very simple because we do not know the seen. Everything we know is already happened, past. We actually know the unseen. Because now when you see me now speaking, looking at me, you don't know what I said at time zero now. You saw what has happened before. So you know the past actually from me. And we talked about this when speed of light, the speed of sound, and so on. And this is why when people look at the star and say this star is 14 billion light year, what does it mean? That this star was in that location 14 billion years ago. Where is it now? That's the scene. That is the Shahada now. What is it? Well, nobody knows. The only one who knows where is the star now is a star even still alive. He might already have died and destroyed and so on. But only Allah knows that. So that's why that, if you reflect on it, actually the Shahada, we cannot know the Shahada. Although we claim we see it just, because of the scale of time that we consider. Then Allah subhanahu wa continue, هو الله الذي لا إله الملك القدوس السلام المؤمن المهيمن العزيز الجبار المتكبر. And then, سبحان الله عما يشركون هو الله الخالق البارئ المصور له الأسماء الحسنى يسبح له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض وهو العزيز الحكيم. So all of these, names you can, because frankly, even when you translate the name, like, Al-Malik, the king, the Quddus, the holy, it really doesn't explain it properly. So I just put it in, and then you can go back to every word, every name here, and you find the talk about it, a couple of pages description, for it. And Al-Bari Al-Musawwir, Al-Khaliq Al-Bari Al-Musawwir. I mean, three words here, which are almost like closer to each other, and we discussed. But when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what do you think it is? Isn't that supposed to be a question? I said, who did this? You said, who did this? Then you said, Ahid, for example, or Anis. I mean, if I said Anis, that means there must be a question asked. So that means actually that any difficult question that you face, the answer with it, who Allah. Who created? Who Allah. Who controls the universe? Who Allah. Who bring food? Who Allah. if you look at it, you see out that all of the element of it, the answer comes who Allah. And Allah with the different attributes here comes in to answer a question for you. So that could be, just an insight. I said I'm not going to talk about it, but this is because I said this surah has many other verses that you can explain it easily when you look to Bani Nadir, the betrayal or the expulsion of Bani Nadir, but it's going to take longer. I'll do it another time. But this is the location of Medina. I just brought this map to you to know where is the tribes, the Jewish tribes were, because there was 3 Jewish tribes in Medina, and this is when the Prophet ﷺ has a pact with them, and so on. So that would be the ones. And the Bani Nadir is Bani Qurayza, the story of Bani Qurayza, Bani Qaynuqa, all of them had done something. And Bani Nadir actually was the first tribe to leave. So اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه. اللهم اهدنا فيمن هديت وعافنا فيمن عافيت وتولنا فيمن توليت وبارك اللهم لنا فيما أعطيت وقنا واصرف عنا شر ما قضيت فإنك يا ربنا تقضي بالحق ولا يقضى عليك. اللهم ادخلنا برحمتك في عباد الصالحين. اللهم اخرجنا من ظلمات الجهل والوهم إلى نور العلم. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. اللهم اجعلنا ممن يستمعون القول فيتبعون أحسنه. اللهم أوزعنا أن نشكر نعمتك التي أنعمت علينا وعلى والدينا وأن نعمل صالحا ترضاه. اللهم اصلح لنا في ذريتنا إنا تبنا إليك وإننا من المسلمين. Oh Allah, spread your mercy upon us, shower us with your blessings, increase our knowledge, grant us forgiveness, and reward us with the company of the prophets in the Firdaus al-A'la. Oh Allah, forgive our parents and all our friends and relatives who have passed away. Oh Allah, make their graves a garden from heaven and grant them Firdaus al-A'la. Oh Allah, we have many of our friends and relatives who are sick. We have our son Ma'raj, our daughter Aishawani, our brother Akram, our brother Hisham. Oh Allah, grant all of them full and speedy recovery. Oh Allah, we know that there is no cures but yours. Oh Allah, grant them a cure that leaves no ailment or injury. Oh Allah, grant us the power and the ability that we may be grateful for the favor you have bestowed upon us and our parents, and that we may do righteous deeds that are pleasing to you. Oh Allah, guide our children, protect them and make them righteous. Oh Allah, we seek from you all of the good whether we know it or we don't, and we seek your refuge from all evil whether we know it or we don't. Oh Allah, we seek your refuge from incapacity, from laziness, from fear, from greed, from poverty, and from the torment of the grave. Oh Allah, we ask with every name you have elected for yourself that none of us leave this gathering, but his pains have been relieved, his worries have been removed, his debts have been paid, his weaknesses have been concealed, his sins have been forgiven, and his needs have been fulfilled. Subhanallah wa bihamdih, عدد خلقه ورضا نفسه وزنة عرشه ومداد كلماته. سبحان الله وبحمده عدد خلقه ورضا نفسه وزنة عرشه ومداد كلماته. سبحان الله وبحمده عدد خلقه ورضا نفسه وزنة عرشه ومداد كلماته. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على خير المرسلين. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.